of going back to work. One second. So initially we had concerns around working remotely. Now we have concerns of going back to work. How do we plan commute work? How do we plan and take care of our kids? How can we continue to work with our colleagues whom we haven't seen for almost 1 year? So for all these concerns, employees expect a calm, structured and peaceful approach from their leaders. Therefore, in all this context, leaders seem to be under an immense pressure to find and deliver the right answers, the right solution to these unprecedented times. And it has been very hard, sometimes unimaginably hard. But leaders are humans themselves, so it has been hard for them to adjust and to cope with all the feelings that they had inside. In today's webinar, we want to approach the topic of this new normal from leaders' perspective, how the new ways of working have impacted them, what adjustments they need to do to stand up to the expectations, and what they further need to do to be successful. What they need to learn and what they need to unlearn to make room for what's new. What are the behaviors that will not support them to succeed? I am Raluca Modoran, Senior Leadership and People Advisor with Signium, Stein Partner, and I will be your host for the event for the next 1 hour and 15 minutes. I have today with me 3 senior leaders from 3 different companies, 3 different industries, who will bring their insights and views on how they've acted or reacted to the change, how they've led their organizations through the changes, and what are their recommendations for the future. Let me introduce you to our guests for today. Melania Jaravete, HR Manager for Cargus Romania. Welcome, Melania.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Let me share a few words about Melania. Melania has more than 20 years of experience in human resources and communications. Her areas of focus are transformation, optimization and improvement, and also work relationships. And she was personally impacted by the crisis that hit last year, because she was by the time working in aviation with Blue Air. And she was one of those leaders who joined companies during COVID, so during people working on and off home. And she had to experience a new onboarding. We'll come back to Melania shortly. I want also to introduce to you Adina Vidroiu, HR Manager for Romania, Greece, Malta and Cyprus for Microsoft. Welcome, Adina.
Thank you so much, Raluca. Good afternoon to everyone. I hope we will spend some good time together in this afternoon, although it's quite rainy outside. Super happy to be here, excited as well, and looking for a great conversation.
Thank you, Adina. Adina, in the past 12 years, has undertaken senior roles within multiple areas of HR in global leader companies that span across different industries. She's a leader with great passion, as she likes to describe herself, leading cultural and organizational changes with a special focus on diversity and inclusion. And she shows care and empathy while partnering with business for success. We have with us Dragos Barbulescu, Deputy General Director and Group CFO for E.ON Romania. Welcome, Dragos.
Thank you, Raluca. Happy to be here.
Dragos is with E.ON for more than 14 years now, and his focus has been on transformation, improvement, and optimization. He is also chairing the board of directors for E.ON Romania for more than 8 years and has a broad view on both executive and non-executive challenges that industry faced. She has a diploma with INSEAD and also another one with Academy of Economics. A few house rules. I have prepared lots of questions for our invites, but we also welcome your questions by using the Q&A session in Zoom. I will pick them up and share with the invite. And also, as you've probably seen, this event is recorded so we can share it with our larger audience. Now, we've mentioned a few concepts. We've talked about leaders, the new normal, success. Now, Dragos, I would like to ask you the first question. So you have this view both from executive and non-executive level, and I wanted to understand from you, once this pandemic hit the entire society and the economy, how have your expectations as board members changed towards the leaders from your organizations? And also, what has been their immediate response?
Thank you for the question, Raluca. Indeed, that's, let's say, one of the topics that have indeed had a significant impact on us. Maybe to introduce briefly, E.ON in Romania is basically delivering energy, gas and power for about 3.3 million customers, and we have also around 100,000 kilometers of grid, both gas and power. So most of our, let's say, organization, which is about 6,600 people, it's in the field. A lot of our people are basically and were basically kind of in the battleground, let's put it like that, because they had to take care of the grids, and that everybody had power and gas during the very difficult times that we had, especially in the beginning last year. Now, if you look at what happened, well, I think from expectation point of view, of course, first was the human expectation. I mean, we kind of encompassed all of us difficulties on personal but also business level. And on this side, I think the first one was the, let's say, human part, to get in touch and to connect with as many people as we could from a professional level, I mean, in the organization, to provide confidence and to help people, to reassure them in the difficult times that we had at the beginning. So let's say that the main care was first about people. Mm-hmm. Second, of course, was resilience of the business, to take care, as I mentioned, about the fact that we needed to deliver power and gas. And of course, we had a lot of, let's say, struggles and logistical difficulties, especially in the beginning, related to people in the field. That we had to put in place and debated hourly, many hours, first internally, how to set up, and second externally with the authorities, because we have encountered a number of difficulties in terms of doing the job they were supposed to do. A lot of local authorities were basically, I will not say harassing, but definitely stopping our teams in the field. So second was resilience and organization. In terms of expectations towards the people, let's say, apart from these two topics, so first people, second resilience, the third was to basically transform their approach from, let's say, more of a control to some extent to a more facilitator, coaching style. At the same time, so that what I've mentioned as the first priority people was also kind of put into the real life in a much better way, and that's at least the introduction that I would like to make to your question. I guess my or our colleagues from HR may have some additional points.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Dragos. What did you observe, Adina, from Microsoft, from your point of view? How was that? So how did the expectation change from the board level towards the leadership team?
So I think just to give a bit of a context, I think that if we look 1.5 years back, everything that has happened kind of changed the work forever. And it's not only if we look at the leaders, I think we need to kind of look at the entire workforce, and then the pandemic has impacted every person and organization across the globe. So just a bit as a reflection, although, in some instances, for example, we saw that in Central and Eastern Europe, it led also to a higher degree of digitalization. And then when we look at remote work has created new job opportunities for some, then for others, it offered also more family time, then it provided, options for whether or when to commute. But at the same time, what we actually observe as well is that there is an ascending number of hours worked. Which led to exhaustion, which, it was much more challenging to keep the balance between personal life and professional life. And then it has, the line between personal and professional has become even thinner. And then at the same time, in one of the reports that we released back a few weeks back, we were seeing that teams are becoming more and more siloed, and then the level of stress increased as well. So those are kind of some of the side effects that we were able to kind of see, which of course, going back to your question, it puts a bit more pressure on the leaders and the managers across the organization, because at the end of the day, not only they are human, so they were going through the same changes, but at the same time, this particular change impacted their own team members. And I think their focus was, will they be able to advise, would they be able actually to help their team members maintain that work-life balance, and at the same time continue to be productive, because once you shift completely to a digital working environment, it's not that easy to connect, and it's something that we have seen. And then one of the things that is quite interesting, because I was reading just before the event, is that Gallup says that managers account for 70% of the impact of the employee experience. And that comes also with a lot of pressure. And thus managers, and not only managers, they are vital for fostering an environment where, people can do their work. So I think that's one of the things that kind of shifted, and it made us, have a closer look at this particular group. And it became more important to support them during this period and equip them with the right tools to be able to support their teams. I think that I would say kind of, in a nutshell.
That's clear. The pressure on the leaders was immense in the past year, because as you mentioned, there's the pressure from the executive team, there is the pressure from their people, but they're humans, no? So they have the pressure from home, from their spouses, partner, kids, extended family. Melania, you joined Cargus in November, when I think we were hit by almost the second wave, no, at that point. So after a quite calm autumn, in November we were already in the second wave. So after a period of time where I think hope was there that we are going to be fine. So you joined an organization during how was that for you? What did you observe when you joined the company?
So first of all, taking Adina's lead and talking a little bit about the context, I think it is important to note that this is a courier company. Therefore, this is performing an essential service which had not stopped even during the lockdown, and which had been under a lot of pressure gradually. So first, by the uncertainty of everything, and you remember the fact that we started to believe that this is becoming serious, and then we started to think it will go away soon, and it took quite a while until we actually realized that this is going to be a long spell, not as short as originally intended. So basically that meant for the business a complete shift of view, an adaptation to to the new context, but also a lot of work, you know. So basically, the business was in high demand. There was a lot of pressure, you know, to keep the standards and to deliver and to keep our good record of on-time delivery. But also this means that for me it was very interesting to note how the environment in this context is very different for the vast majority of the team who is performing a work which cannot be done remotely. So if we remember this community, basically Cargus community counts almost 4,500 people, out of which a vast majority are working as couriers and sorters. So this is an activity which under no circumstances can be performed other than on site. Therefore, the impact on the team related to remote working was limited to the impact on the team working support functions, leaders, managers, you know, a part of the team. It was very interesting to note these two, let's say, populations, because I would say the two need a different approach. I personally believe in a tailored response, and I don't think there is one size fits all. So while the managers were needing support in learning how to manage their teams remotely, or how to, you know, keep the spirit of the team close and monitor everything remotely. And they were having way too many Teams calls, as everybody, I think, had felt at some point. On the floor, let's put it like in a courier company, on the floor, because, you know, we count our success by how many shipments are on the floor, aiming for 0, of course, which means to deliver everything. And on the floor, things were very different, because I think for my colleagues going out every day, they felt it very differently. They felt it as still a means to connect. And, you know, our internal feedback was, my smile can be seen also through the mask. It is a connection. You know, sometimes you stay at home and the only person you see is the courier knocking at your door, because there is clearly a lot of things we had delivered to our door for a long time. And for them, it was still a good means to keep the interaction. So I think these are the two contexts which need to be considered. For me, yes, it was very challenging to find the adapted answers and the adapted ways to discuss with the two respective parts of the team, as I was saying.
Thank you very much, Melania. Indeed, as we were chatting some time back, indeed, I so related to what you said. In so many days, the only different person from my family was the courier knocking at my door. And if I think about that, I think every day someone comes at my door for, I don't know what.
The same for me.
And indeed, these are very different challenges. To be a leader in Microsoft, where you have all your team members working from home, so that's a set of challenges. Then to be a leader a team leader in Cargus, where we have everyone on the ground. Just to continue with what you mentioned, Melania, what were the main concerns of your team leaders during those times?
So I would say, if I could sum up in two different directions, I would say the main concerns were related to, let's say, adapt to the new business environment, find the best ways business-wise, but also there was a big, let's say, concern for the mental health of our employees. And I think this is one of the new things that we have been discussing recently very much. If you remember, a few years ago, we used to be talking a lot about benefits, work-life balance. There was a lot of talk about what we could do more for our people and so on. Now, I think the word of the day, or the word of the year, I think it should be, the phrase of the year should be related to mental health. Because in the long run, we all feel more or less, depending on our own circumstances, either too disconnected, either too exposed, either both at the same time. Because, you know, people have seen our houses, our kids, our cats crossing the screens, and you know very well all of these things in a way make us feel overexposed. While on the other side, we feel at some point completely disconnected because we cannot touch each other, you know, a pat on the arm, a handshake, a hug. We don't have that, or we didn't have that for a long time, and one way or another, it leaves an impact on the teams and on the. So our main concern was this.
Mm-hmm. And Dragos, I wanted to ask you if so have you seen any different behavior or level of concerns when it comes to senior leaders versus more junior leaders in the way they have reacted to the new context?
I would not say necessarily that there was a different level of concerns. The concerns, you know, at personal level was vastly similar. I mean, they were mentioned already by the colleagues, blurring of the, let's say, personal and business lines, and so on. What I would say is mostly the topic of concern was a bit different. You know, from overall point of view, from a top leadership point of view, we were very concerned about business continuity. We were very concerned about basically, you know, on one side, because if you look at our company, I think we are in the middle in between Microsoft and Cargus. We are having something like 1/3 of our people at home. So we had to transition overnight with approximately 2,500 people on work from home basis, and the other part was basically field working. So at that moment we had both challenges, let's say, at the same time, and the topic of business continuity, at least at the leadership level, was kind of first priority. We had to have, you know, continuous supplies in terms of power and gas for all our customers. How do you ensure, you know, everything goes smoothly? And second is, you know, already mentioned the topic of the pressures and the psychological impact of the crisis on all of us that we had to handle, you know, a personal level, but also with the teams together.
Adina, how was that for your organization? Have you seen different reactions from senior or to more junior managers?
I think that, you know, there are differences based on, you know, the experience that we have, but just to build a little bit on what Dragos was saying, is that if we were looking at Microsoft, it was not only about, you know, looking at our people. At the same time, as an organization, we needed also to support our customers, because they were also digitalizing at a fast pace, so they were going through the same changes. So it was a journey for us, and it will continue to be a journey. I think one of the things that definitely helped is that when we look in Microsoft, we have a framework for all our people manager, which is around model coach care. So these are kind of the three areas that is part of you know, for the development of any people manager that we have in the organization, either a junior, a senior, and then a senior executive in the organization. And I think we started this journey before the pandemic. And then we made sure that it's aligned, you know, with our leadership principles, with our cultures, with our values, but at the same time, it creates clarity of what are the expectations that we are having from a manager, and that created simplicity and clarity. And then I know when we say model coach care, sounds very simple and easy, but it's not necessarily like this. And we observe a few patterns. So when we actually say model, for example, our expectation from every manager in the organization is actually to kind of demonstrate strength of character. And then, you know, they are role models for the culture, for the values, but also for the leadership principles that we have. And they are the ones who are setting the tone. And then with their words and their action, they are the ones actually which are leading with, you know, integrity to protect individuals in the companies, which are their team members, but also at the same time, the company. Coach, yes, it is very commonly used. But at the same time, you know, for us, it means that they need to help their teams and others to kind of, you know, develops that sense of shared purpose. And it's also by creating the level of energy with their team, by supporting them on a day-to-day basis. So that's what that part was critical. And then we know that managers who actually create highly engaged teams, they have a higher productivity and they help even more their team. And I think the part that was more critical during this period was the care one. Because fundamentally, the role of a people manager is also to care about others. And it's not only about their team members, it's also about the other peers that they are interacting across the organization. And then they are also kind of, you know, building on the talents they have, and they are finding the right talents. And then, you know, they are the ones also who are creating that open and trusting environment where their people can open up. And that was critical during this period because, you know, from the conversation that was typically, you know, one-to-one, talking about what they need to do and focusing on the day-to-day work activity, this has shifted during this period. There was a lot of focus about talking, how are you feeling? How are you today? What are the things that are top of mind for you? And then the answers that they were receiving were more related to the personal life. So they needed to be equipped for that. And this is what we've been done. But it wasn't easy. It's still a journey because, as I said, at the very end of the day, leaders, managers, they are also people and individuals that they have also a personal life back home.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Adina. Model coach care. Yeah, and even if that started even before the pandemic, it's still on. It's just been adjusted to the needs of the moment.
Exactly, and it's one of the core priorities that each people manager has. And the purpose from the very beginning was to create clarity. And then it really helped us during this period because each manager knew what was expected from their side. And it was much more easy for them to prioritize what they need to do on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Clear. Dragos, if you would be to give a definition of a great leadership in the new normal, what would you highlight?
Great leadership, it's a combination at the end of the day. It's the ability to balance in between different perspectives. I think it always will have to have the people first. I like very much what Adina described in terms of the, you know, the way Microsoft did it even before the pandemic. I would say it's similar models, let's put it like that, exist in different ways. We have also a very similar one. And from this perspective, for me, and especially after the pandemic, it's more about caring about the people, caring about the team, balancing different perspectives, balancing the interests of different stakeholders. It's about more and more about indeed mental health at the end, at least especially in this period, but at the same time getting connected and finding new ways to connect. You know, I remember now with the help of all the tools, including Microsoft Teams, you know, we started to have those famous, how should I say, kind of online parties in brackets, yeah? So, you know, each of us with a glass of wine and basically meeting virtually with topics that were not at all related to office, but rather to spend and connect time together, you know, as a team. And to form and to, let's say, feel again the feelings that we were missing due to the social distancing and the lockdowns.
Mm-hmm. I know HR and business usually have the conversation around the profile of great leadership. How was that for Cargus, Melania? What's the, let's say, if the case, what's the profile of a great leader in this new normal?
So I would continue what Dragos said, because I believe that very much. I believe that it is about balance and it is about care. I think the profile of the leader in Cargus during this time, and I hope it will continue on this journey, because yes, I also believe that this is a journey, and we get to be better, develop and improve while we travel, is mainly related to this, related to, let's say, business continuity, adapting flexibility to this context and to the business requirements, which were different, but also about caring about people. So about putting people first and making sure people are involved in the middle of each decision. So basically, it is a matter of, let's say, finding the right balance between the requirements of the business and the requirements of the team. Not that the team actually has requirements like that. They don't come up and say, we want to connect, but you can feel it. You know that this is what it is. And also, of course, I would add, as Adina was mentioning before, that on top of all of those, they also have their own challenges. They are also people, let's not forget that. So each one of them struggling individually with the differences related to, you know, kids doing school online, or having, we used to have at some point decided to not to have meetings at 1 because we needed to cook for our kids who were having, meetings on, and this part, I will say again, because I believe in it very much, I think this part, showing them that leaders are also human, was a new thing. It is the first time that they actually understood that our CFO is making soup at some point. She was, Dragos, I'm not sure whether you made soup or not.
More like omelette.
Yeah, so this kind of things. So vulnerability, or showing vulnerability and sharing the same challenges, I think, is what brought us together and helped us relink, or never lose that link of being a team,
That's so powerful, because and I'm thinking of, we've talked about expectations from leaders. They need to balance, they need to keep delivering business, they need to keep their teams engaged, connected. And then, okay, we said they need to show more of themselves. Now, the question that comes to my mind is, after centuries of leadership model where you should look bright and smart and powerful and always, know it all type, how can leaders balance and admit that they are human too and vulnerable in front of their teams? Isn't that a myth which is busted, that the leader should not be, or how do you see that?
I think they can, and I think they should. So, and I think it is not necessarily something that was expected with capital letters out of them. It was something that came naturally. But also when it came naturally, it helped create the connection. So it ended up in a loop of, yes, this works. Yes, this is what we should continue to be doing. And also I would say that going with the times, and because we are in the 21st century, we are more and more surrounded by people who are expecting a completely different model from the leaders, and we are expecting them to be involved and truthful, more than always being perfect or always knowing it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Adina, what are your reflections? I know we've changed some thoughts on that.
I think it depends quite a lot on the culture of the organization that you're part of. And then even if you're aiming to kind of, share the story, show your vulnerability, share more about you as a leader, it needs to be intentional. And then if I look in Microsoft, it is part of, of our diversity and inclusion strategy and our plan, because diversity and inclusion doesn't necessarily always mean gender diversity and then, the LGBTQI plus community. It's also about having inclusive behaviors and then being mindful of the things that are happening across the organization. And what we've done in the last year, and even before the pandemic, is that we were intentional, and it started with the leadership team being intentional and sharing more about themselves, sharing more about the struggle, sharing more across the organization that it's okay not to be okay during this period. And what we've tried to do, especially in this one, is that exactly as Melania was saying, that, and Dragos is sharing as well, mental health is important, and it's one of the areas that we focused very much in the last year and a half. And we still have a stigma. I think if we look in our country, there is still a stigma when it comes to mental health and the balance. And it was an effort and an intention to kind of educate our people that it's okay. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to invest time. It's okay to come and then share the story that you have behind. And we've done that across the area. We've done that across the organization. And that encourage and empower people at their turn to be able to open up and share their view and share their perspective and what they are going through. And I think, I know that there are a lot of organizations across Romania that have invested a lot in session with psychotherapists or psychologists for them to actually support their organization and then create a bit more self-awareness with their employees and be able to kind of ask for help if needed. Not to monitor that, but rather to have it there as an option and be able to go and then access that particular one. It hasn't been easy, and I think we need to be true to ourselves that staying all of the sudden at home with, exactly as Dragos and Melania were sharing, with children, with schools that were closed, with having partners or being probably single parent working from home, it's not easy. So we've seen that, and we made sure that we create that flexibility. I think in the last year and a half, I met all the children, kids, cats, dogs of my colleagues, and not only in Central and Eastern Europe or Romania, but actually across the globe. And trust me, I think it was something that everyone was looking forward to, kind of see something or someone popping up in the call, because that started to create a bit more energy. So creating that space and that flexibility and sharing that it's okay not to be okay, coming from the leadership team and then being cascaded throughout the organization, definitely helped in this period. Those are kind of a few of my reflection, at least looking, back a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's okay not to be okay, no? For me to summarize, very interestingly. So that relates a lot with it relates with the showing vulnerability. But as you mentioned, this goes along with the culture of the organization. How does that fit with E.ON culture, Dragos? How do you see this moving forward?
It fits quite well since we had, I would say, a few years before the pandemic, the topic of care within the organization, which has been translated in a number of actions. And we started quite a while before, and now has basically raised up to a new level with new complexities, with new challenges, which are, let's say, more comprehensive than we ever thought they could be before. So from this point of view, I think we are on a good track. I would encourage everyone, looking at also my colleagues, both Microsoft and Cargus have this part within their culture, which is clearly a need and a must for this period. And I think also for the future, it will be a must. Also looking at my colleagues, which are, how should I say, even the one older or younger, they are all equally affected and touched by the current situation. And I think this value of care, it's one of the most important going forward.
Mm-hmm. And related to care, changing a bit the perspective, I'll take the first question that we received on our Q&A. So thank you for this great event. Congratulations. My question is, what motivates better the people in the new normal era? What would you say, Dragos, that's the answer for you?
I would say that, well, these days, from one perspective, of course, it always depends on the person, on the specific, let's say, situation of the person. But we'll always count, let's say, the human part, the care, the trust, the, let's say, team cohesion and the team spirit that you build within the team. At the end of the day, to feel that you not only have a purpose in terms of what you're doing in an organization, or you are part of an organization which has a clear purpose at the end of the day, but you also have your purpose and you enjoy going to, let's say, not saying work, but rather spending time and contributing together with your colleagues to whatever you are doing. So I think this passion coupled with a sense of purpose, it's the biggest motivators for everybody.
Mm-hmm. So passion coupled with a sense of purpose, the sense of being part of something bigger than the day.
Correct. And going, you know, to, let's say, as I said, I would not like to say work, but going to whatever you do with pleasure, and, you know, feeling that you are trusted and you are empowered and you are part of a team.
Thank you for that. This reminds me the conversation that I had with Melania a couple of weeks ago with what motivates the employees from Cargus to be on the road every day and to expose themselves. And I remember you said that you can see the smile even behind the mask, and your colleagues were the one bringing the smile to their customers every day.
And charging themselves from it.
And charging themselves from it. So what would you say that, just to answer to the same question, what would you say that motivates them? Or what did they say motivates them? Because I'm sure you
exactly. Actually, this was not what I said, but this is what they said. So this is coming from my colleagues, that my smile can be seen behind my mask. I enjoy, you know, bringing this kind of connection to people, because, you know, the difference is that for them, and we have people in our team who have been working for Cargus for quite a while now. Some of them will tell you that if courier business was something which has been slowly growing in the last few years, now lately they have become a very welcome visitor, and of course they feel like they are bringing joy, or they are bringing a change and a new face, and you know, they are bringing the energy, and the energy is mutual, so they charge from that. So basically this is the feedback, that being in contact with the customer daily. I remember this morning, I'm actually today in Cluj, I'm not in Bucharest, so one of my colleagues from Cluj was just telling me that by going and delivering, usually if you repeat the route, you will meet the same customers, because, you know, there are some people, Adina, you are smiling like me, I think you are the, you remember something that you used to order frequently or repeatedly. So if you ring at the same door, and, you know, you have the same people answering the door, you start slowly to build a connection. And one of my colleagues was telling me today in Cluj that when he goes, he's invited inside and he is offered cookies, and like a visitor. So not like a stranger, but rather like a welcome visitor, especially as the human connection prevails, in my opinion. So I would add that, to respond to the question, topping everything that I have said so far, I would mark one more point, which is clarity. I think the need for this, or the expectation, you know, because we are all living times of uncertainty, and there has been a lot of uncertainty. of how did this start, when will it end, what will happen later, how many waves will there be, and so on and so forth. And nobody knows the answers to these ones. So I think the need is, in the context of it's okay not to be okay, to give as much clarity as you possibly can, but keeping the lines of the of the reality.
And related to that, we started to receive more questions from the audience. How did the pandemic situation impacted the organizational culture? Or did the pandemic situation impacted the organizational culture? If so, how long will it last, and how the organization will fit and adjust? So what's your view on that?
I think it did impact the organizational culture, perhaps in many ways that we are not all aware of. It's not like we've done an exhaustive inventory, but it definitely did impact the culture. Perhaps in one way by making us feel closer, be closer, show, as I said, vulnerability sometimes, build a remote relationship with the teams, and also for the people working on the ground, becoming in a more closer connection to the customers, and feeling that responsibility. Because if you ask my colleagues, they will tell you that they are very proud, and what they did during this year is actually heroic at some point. Maybe I'm saying this because I feel it like a member of the team, so I'm definitely subjective speaking from inside, but the feeling inside is like this. So they feel that sometimes it was really hard, and they were charging from the smiles of the customer and the satisfaction of keeping our hard work at the same high level in this context. So yes, I would say it did change.
It is heroic. For the past 1.5 years, I think your colleague saved a lot of lives.
And this is what I believe too. I believe that, as I said, it is really hard work. And remember, we are doing this by, delivering according to the route assigned to that day, and meeting 60, 80 different people every day. Mm-hmm. So it is really under that context. Remember when we didn't want to see our best friends, and we used to have glasses of wine on Zoom or Teams with them because we wouldn't meet. These people met 60 to 80 people every day.
So you would say that this pandemic influenced your culture in the sense of increased the sense of proudness, or the pride. Yes, the pride in the organization.
Yes, in a way, and also, also making them responsible in a way, giving them a different perspective on their work. I mean, a different angle to see their work, because they felt they were contributing more to the community.
Yeah.
They felt needed, let's say.
Yeah. It's very powerful. How did that feel for you, Dragos? How did the pandemic influence the culture?
I think it was kind of a strong nudge in a sense, in terms of there are certain traits of the culture and values that were present before, but they were augmented, let's put it like that, during the pandemic, care by far being one of them. Then I would say that also there were new ways in which culture manifested in terms of actions. One of the traits was, about customers. In this situation, we had a lot of struggles with keeping up with significant challenges, especially during the high virus spread period, when we had people being basically locked down in a dispatcher room for 1 week. They were only being given, food and water basically for 1 week, without access to from outside, or their possibility to go home was cut. So there were a lot of, how should I say, gesture, the same, and also things that we required and we needed to do actually in order to bring life to values and culture at the end of the day.
You provide a service to all the citizens that was how to say, really needed for all of us. So I completely understand the incredible pressure that was on you. So what would you say that was the outcome of this impact on the culture?
The outcome, I think, first, it's visible, or clearly visible, and I think it will be visible for quite a while. It shifted a lot on humanizing part of the culture. So the focus shifted quite a lot. It shifted a lot on people. It shifted a lot in terms of contributions that we all make, and also we are a lot more aware about one another and the importance of the, how should I say, separating now, just to give an example, personal and so private and business life, because we are struggling with it, and actually it's very difficult now sometimes to find the separation line. I think it will have a long-lasting effect, and I think it will be, especially on this part of humanization of all aspects of it, this will be one of the biggest, let's say, not challenges, but changes in the culture.
I have a question. I have a couple of questions for Adina regarding the models that you mentioned. So one of them is, so on the model coach care, how is it obtained and diffused within the managers?
So as I was sharing, this is part of their core priority. So basically, what we have done is that we create clarity about what this means. So each year, when it comes to performance development, we have connects. This is how we call that, and we look at the impact of the individual. So we don't have a bell curve. It's basically the individual and the impact that the individual has in that year. It's not only related to what the impact that it has from a business perspective and the KPIs, it's actually also around how that person is collaborating with others, leading through others, building on the work of others. So basically there are three circles. That's one of the things. The other thing is that every year, we focus on the perspectives that the individual are getting. And this is not only for the people manager, this is also for the employees that we have in the organization. We are strongly believers that it's not the feedback, it's rather the perspective they are sharing. I think that when we talk about feedback, most of the time people are kind of blocking themselves and saying, that surely needs to be something negative as well. That's why from when we talk about perspective, we kind of shift a little bit from a neuroscience perspective, because it's allowing the individual to share what they feel, what they believe, and then what are the things that they can focus on. And then still embedded in the performance and development, we also have a set of questions that are addressed to the team members of that particular people manager. They can answer. It can be anonymous, it can be visible. Most of the times people do answer in an honest way by sharing what is that they believe about their manager. And we have ensured that we are building this open and trusted relationship between employees and people managers so that they can learn together from this experience. I would say these are kind of the main things that we are doing. And of course, it's about always making sure that people managers learn about this priority. They have a training and a training path that they are taking on a year-to-year basis, and we start with the basics and then we go with more complex, let's say, competencies and skills that they need to acquire throughout their journey as a people manager and leader in the organization. I hope that answered a little bit the question that came from the audience.
Yes, thank you. And Adina, I have another question, because you mentioned two initiatives. One is the model coach care, and the other one is your is the program that you run to support diversity and inclusion. And the comment is the following: is it often said that strategies on diversity and inclusion are not applicable for CEE, for Central Eastern Europe? Could you please share your insights on diversity and inclusion in Eastern Europe, in particular also on inclusive leadership styles?
Okay, I think it's a broad question, and I think we will be talking for hours if we enter on details on that. And I think if we look at Central Eastern Europe as an area, there has been progress, and there has been progress mainly on the inclusion journey when it comes to particular groups. So as I said at the very beginning, it's not only about gender diversity, it's about how we look at the country level or an area level to identify the areas that we want to look at, that we want to invest, or where we want to create change, make a change actually, and have impact. And I think if we are looking, just to give an example, one of the things that we are leading, and I'm super proud of it, is Women in Technology. It's a employee resource group where actually we are bringing female leaders, and not only female leaders, with technical environments to support young women that they want to follow a career in technology. I think, you know, when we look at across the market, and not only in Romania, we do see more, profiles coming with I mean, I'll be honest, with male profiles. So that's why I think it's important to build that trust that a female can also, and a woman can have a career in technology as well. And we've seen many, many examples, not only in our country, but across the area and across the globe. The other one that we are looking at is the disability. And we are not the only ones. There are multiple organizations across the market that are doing that. And I've been seeing quite a few programs. And even I think it was 2 months back or 3 months back when HR Club had their own gala, their annual gala, and then Kaufland was one of the organizations that they were rewarded for the program that they have developed for disability. I will definitely encourage. I think there is so much work that we can do there. And I think we should invest, and not only as HR professional, but also as leaders, business leaders across different organizations in this particular area. So this are just a few examples, or, you know, investing in female leaders across the organization. That's one other thing that we are preoccupied about. Being a strong advocate for the LGBTQI community. And then by simply attending also Pride Parade, it's one of the the statements that we are making as an organization. And I think inclusion is the key word, I would say, when it comes to our strategy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Adina. Now we mentioned context, we mentioned pressure, we mentioned the aspects of the great leadership in this new normal. Now, a natural question is how will the development programs for leaders adjust? And this is in fact a question that we have received, and that's a question to all our guests. How the training and development programs for the managers changed or will change within your companies after the last 1.5 years experience? How do you prepare the leaders for the next decade? Would you like to start? Melania, would you like to answer first?
Yes, I was just writing down because, I have this bad habit of always writing everything down. So, because I had 2 points that I wanted to mention. One was that what's related to working remotely, managing teams remotely. I think this is one that we are currently working on. Some training is including this thing that it had never included before because it was never considered as being needed before. So managing teams remotely. And a second one is related to mental health, and we have currently a lot of things we are developing in this sense, and which will be unfolding in the immediate future. But as I was saying, our concern for this topic is permanent. Now, in the future, I would add one more perspective because I like this. angle, and I will keep it, thank you Adina, about perspective. So related to generational approach and related to inclusion regarding the generations, I think one of our future education points, if I may put it like that, even though it sounds a little bit harsh to the managers, is related to embracing, approaching generational diversity as a plus, because each generation can bring you things, and instead of having people complain about how the millennials are doing this or how the X generation will be doing that, and the expectations from the workplace, I think the future is including those in our plans and making those a central point of the future. I would also say that looking for lessons from my son, who is 17, I think to prepare them for the future, to be managers of this future generation, to hit the workplace. It is very important also to remember that they are very socially minded. They are community minded. They care very much, and this is a good thing that we can learn from them. So I would like to mention that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melania. So managing teams remotely and virtually, mental health. So these were the priorities for the past 1.5 years, and for the future, adding the generational diversity in the broad sense of inclusive leadership. And with a touch of social, whatever you do, yeah, to embrace the new generation. Thank you for that. Dragos, how do you see that from E.ON's perspective? So when it comes to development programs to support the leaders, what have you changed in the past 1.5 years, and what do you have on the roadmap? I'm sure you will receive requests now from HR to approve.
I think we are vastly aligned, meaning that first, technology as a skill is definitely, critical going forward. So ability to do things with support from technology, be it managing remotely or, connecting to video conferences and so on. Then it's definitely about care and the idea of, let's say, social connectivity at the end of the day. And I think third, it's about, I was thinking to make the point or not about the next generation. It's in terms of trainings, I think it's also important to have, let's say, this ability I mentioned before to balance between different perspectives, which sometimes I feel is not enough embedded into the daily, let's say, routines. And I think that's one of the important things to have it for the future, which will enable us also to build up a more resilient organization at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So technology enablement, as you mentioned it, to be able to use all the... As
an enabler.
Yeah. Care, social connectivity.
Care, social connectivity, which was also mentioned. Maybe I expanded a bit, I'm not sure, but basically it's the same at the end of the day topic.
And the ability to balance.
And third is ability to balance. Yes, exactly.
In order to build resilience. Very good insight. And Adina, how would you summarize your initiatives in the past 1.5 years, and what do you have on the roadmap?
That's an interesting question, and again a broad question. I think in the last year we definitely focused quite a lot on the part of well-being and the mental health. I think going forward, and then it was also about clarity, simplicity, and generate energy. Those are some of the things that we really focused. And then we also learned that clarity and open communication constantly, brings the best out of the people across the organization. I think that moving forward, there are a couple of things that are quite interesting, because the truth is that the hybrid working, which is coming on our way, isn't just changing the way we work. It also kind of shifted the relationship we have with work. I think that's one of the things that's important to have a look at. First of all, flexibility will be critical in the next period, and then it is this particular flexibility that actually it's going to kind of drive the adjustment that we are making also to the learning programs that we have across the organization. So what I would say is that well-being, we will continue to invest, and it will not be something that balances performance, but it's rather something that it is integral to it. So it will be part of that. I think the other thing is that what we've seen across the globe is that learning, for example, is one of the things that people do have a hunger for it. And it's mainly from what I've seen in the digital kind of skills they want to develop, because they are seeing that this is the trend, that it's going on our way. So we are going to continue to invest that in learning for our employees, but also for people that are willing to develop their digital skill. The model that I was mentioning for our people manager remains. The part of making sure that we keep the right balance will continue to be a priority for us moving forward as well. Mm-hmm. So it's quite interesting, because I do recall that, and probably Melania and Dragos will resonate as well. A few years back, we were thinking about, change management. We're thinking about coaching, leadership. We're talking about, how do we properly manage our talents? I think now, if I'm listening, and the more I'm listening, it's a complete shift of what we were used actually to invest as organization, and we started to move closer to what is more sometimes personal to the people that we have in the organization.
Yeah. Yes, true. It got closer to the skin, in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. Closer to human. And now, because we've explored the new leader profile in this new normal, we explore the skills and the competencies and the expectations from the leaders. We talked about the development programs that happened or will happen in the next time. So, and going back to the title, so in order to make room for all of that, there are some aspects, behaviors, or skills that leaders need to ditch, to no longer use, or behaviors that are no longer useful for them. So if you would be to summarize what leaders need to unlearn in order to be successful in the next period of time, what would that be?
I would like to go back to what we said earlier, which is related to vulnerability and being exposed. I think leaders will need to unlearn that lesson that we always need to show a perfect image, that we always need to show a statue or an unrealistic level of expectation from the leaders as being always perfect, always knowing it all, always having answers for everything. I think for going forward, we will need to learn to show who we are and to get closer and more truthful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Just to share a bit and to build what Melania was sharing, and then just to add on top of that, I think that if we look ahead, we know that the hybrid model will require leaders also to meet new employee expectations. And we do have that. Connect more a distributed workforce, and then also to be able to provide the tools to create, innovate, and work together, but also at the same time to be inclusive. Because realistically speaking, many organizations across the market don't have employees only in one city or in the same office. They do have employees in different cities, in different countries, in different and operating on different time zones. And I think that, you know, the hybrid work could present new challenges. And as I said, making sure that everyone feels included and engaged regarding of the location and the role that they have. And I think leaders need to be more intentional about creating the space for those inclusive conversation. And then also kind of to define new ways of how they are working together. I think that that's going to be important. And I think in the last year and a half, we understood so much about flexible work, and we were kind of amazed about how many ways of working it exists across the globe. And then I also believe that, you know, flexibility would be essential in maintaining the work-life balance. So I think this is one of the things, you know, it's top of mind for us. And then, of course, I will also say that we need to continue to have frequent, constant, and open communication with everyone.
Great. So if I may, just to summarize, in order to be able to do all of that, because much of that is new, or at least approximately new, what would you say they need to unlearn?
I would not necessarily say that they need to unlearn something. I think they did quite a lot in the last year, unlearning a lot of things, and then, you know, shifting from what it means to manage a team completely remote, because behaviors changed, the way they interacted with their team members changed, and then the relationship shifted to a more personal level with the people that they were coordinating. So I think that was part of the learning curve of any people manager, and not only people manager. I think it's also for the individual contributor, for the employee itself.
Right.
So in terms of unlearning, it's just, I think they did that already. So I would not say that it's something that they need to continue to do. It's more about relearning actually how to connect with their team members, how to focus on the relationship that they've already built, how to maintain the work-life balance, how to make sure that they are paying attention to what's coming on their way from their team members. What is exactly that it means for them to work in a hybrid model? How flexible can you be? How mindful can you be? Because at the end of the day, you will also have in mind the productivity that is there. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the things that I would say, rather relearn than unlearn.
Thank you for that, Adina. Dragos, what would you say that your leaders need to unlearn or relearn in order to cope with all the changes?
Well, I think at the end of the day now we are looking more forward, meaning, you know, the new hybrid already mentioned. And from this perspective, I think now more relearning probably is the right term, specifically focused on, you know, dealing with people that want to come back more and people that want to come back less. This new normal where you allow flexible working, but this flexible working has some limitations sometimes, and you want the team to reconnect, but at the same time you have to deal with different let's say concerns from different people. This is sometimes tough, looking at the different situations that any organization might have. So as I said, relearn to reconnect and relearn to reconnect the team in this flexible hybrid model. I think this is the next challenge.
Thank you so much, Dragos. Thank you, everyone. The time passed really quick. We are at the end of our session. I think it was the fastest 1 hour and 15 minutes from the past weeks. It was a great session with lots of insights. I've personally experienced, Melania has, And I hope our audience enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us. Thank you, Adina, thank you, Melania, thank you, Dragos, and thank you to all the people that are with us. And I also want to thank our partners, Coaching DPT, Romania Insider, who is our media partner, and Switzerland Romanian Chamber of Commerce. We see each other in autumn for our third event, and we will come with news closer to that event. Till then, I hope you will enjoy summer, real summer, not the one that we have outside, and maybe some holidays with your close ones. Thank you again very much, and see you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Stay safe, healthy. Bye. Bye. Bye.